The stars looked different in the Helix Nebula. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his ship, the Serenity's Edge, watching the strange purple and blue clouds of gas drift past his windows. His long, thin fingers tapped against the metal, railing as he studied the readings on his screens. The Valonian Empire had sent him here to look for new worlds to claim. So far, he had found nothing interesting. "Commander?" called Science Officer Kixara from her station. Her voice was high and musical, like all Valonians. "I am picking up something strange on the long-range sensors." Veltar turned his tall, graceful body toward her. His large black eyes showed mild interest. "What kind of strange?" "A ship, sir, very large. It appears to be drifting without power." Veltar smiled. This was always the best part of exploration. Finding some lost vessel from a primitive species always meant good salvage, and sometimes even new slaves for the Empire. "How large?" Kixara's fingers danced over her controls. Her face showed confusion. "Sir, the readings must be wrong. It shows the vessel as being nearly 3 times the size of our flagship." "Impossible." Veltar walked over to her station. The Valonian flagship was the largest ship in known space. No primitive species could build anything bigger. "Run the scan again." The readings came back the same. Veltar stared at the numbers on the screen. Either his equipment was broken, or they had found something very unusual. "Sir," Kixara said quietly, "what if the readings are correct?" Veltar laughed. The sound was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Then we have found a species that builds very big ships to make up for very small brains. Primitive species always do this. They think bigger means better." He walked back to his command chair and sat down. "Set course for the unknown vessel. Prepare a full scanning protocol. I want to know everything about this ship and the creatures who built it." The Serenity's Edge moved through space like a silver arrow. It was beautiful with smooth curves and flowing lines. The Valonians believed that art and science should work together. Their ships looked more like sculptures than weapons of war, as they got closer to the unknown ship. More details became clear on the screens. The vessel was huge, dark, and covered in what looked like scars. It had no flowing lines or artistic beauty. It looked like it had been built by someone who cared only about one thing: function. "Commander," Kixara said, her voice showing worry, "this ship design is very different from anything we have seen before." Veltar studied the image on the main screen. The ship was long and thick, like a metal stick with weapons attached to every surface. It had no windows that he could see. The hull was dark gray, almost black, and covered in strange bumps and lines. "Ugly," he said. "Whatever species built this has no sense of beauty." Deep inside the unknown ship, Captain Taemin Park sat in his command chair, watching his crew work. The bridge of the Indomitable Will was dark and red-lit. Warning lights blinked slowly, showing that the ship was running on emergency power. "Damage report," Park said. His voice was tired but steady. Lieutenant Hee-Jin Kim looked up from her station. "Hull damage to Section 7 through 12. We lost 2 weapon batteries in the fight with those pirates. Chief Engineer Lee says the main engines will be ready in 6 hours. Park nodded. The pirates had hit them hard, but they had hit the pirates harder. 3 pirate ships destroyed, 2 more running away with their hulls cracked open. Not bad for a day's work. "Any sign of more hostiles?" Park asked. "No, sir," Kim replied. "Space is clear for 50,000 kilometers in all directions." Park allowed himself to relax slightly. His ship and crew had been fighting pirates for 3 weeks. They needed rest and repairs before they could continue their mission. "Keep us on minimal power," he ordered. "I want us to look like space junk until the repairs are finished." Chief Engineer Da Yun Lee's voice came over the communication system. "Captain, I need another 4 hours to fix the main power grid. The pirates hit us right in the power coupling." "Take your time, Chief," Park replied. "We're not going anywhere." On the Serenity's Edge, Veltar watched as his crew prepared to scan the unknown vessel. The ship hung in space like a sleeping giant, showing no signs of life or movement. "Begin deep scan," Veltar ordered. "Yes, sir." Kixara began working at her station. scanning for life signs, technology levels, and structural composition. The Valonian scanning beam reached out across space, invisible but powerful. It touched the hull of the human ship and began to probe inside, looking for answers. The first results made Kixara frown. "Sir, this hull is very thick, much thicker than needed for normal space travel." "How thick?" Veltar asked. "Over 2 meters of metal and other materials I cannot identify." "Sir, this is not normal hull plating. This is armor." Veltar's smile faded. Armor meant the ship was built for fighting. But who would build a ship this big just for war? "Continue scanning," he ordered. The beam pushed deeper into the human ship. It found corridors filled with strange equipment, rooms full of sleeping people, and storage areas packed with items the Valonian computer could not identify. "Life signs are strong," Kixara reported. "I count approximately 15,000 individuals aboard the vessel." 15,000? Veltar stood up quickly. "That cannot be right. No ship needs a crew that large." "The computer confirms the count, sir." "But, sir, there is something else. The individuals appear to be in some kind of organized groups. The scanning beam is detecting what looks like military formations." Veltar felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Military formations meant soldiers. Lots of soldiers. "What kind of species puts 15,000 soldiers on one ship?" he whispered. Back on the Indomitable Will, Lieutenant Kim was watching her sensors when she noticed something odd. "Captain," she said, "I'm picking up a strange energy reading." Park looked at her screen. "What kind of energy?" "Unknown type, sir. It seems to be coming from about 50,000 kilometers away. The beam is very focused and appears to be scanning us." Park's tired expression changed to alert concern. "We're being scanned?" "Yes, sir. Deep-level scanning. Someone is trying to look inside our ship." Park hit the communication button. "All hands, this is the captain. We have unknown contacts scanning our vessel. Remain at current stations, but be ready for emergency action." He turned to Kim. "Can you tell what kind of ship is scanning us?" "Working on it, sir." Kim's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "I'm getting a return signal. The ship appears to be about 12 kilometers long. Design unknown." Park thought quickly. 12 kilometers was big, but his ship was 35 kilometers long. Size wasn't everything, but it usually meant more weapons and more crew. "Keep monitoring," he ordered. "Let me know if they make any hostile moves." On the Valonian ship, Kixara was getting more confused by the minute. The scanning beam had found storage areas filled with items that her computer identified as weapons. Lots of weapons. "Commander," she said, "the vessel appears to be carrying enough weapons to arm a small army." "How small?" Veltar asked. "Sir, based on the weapons count, they could arm about 50,000 soldiers." Veltar sat down heavily. "They have 15,000 people on board and weapons for 50,000? "Yes, sir. And Commander, there is something else. The scanning beam has found what appears to be manufacturing equipment. They can make more weapons while they travel." Veltar stared at the image of the unknown ship on his screen. "What kind of species built mobile weapons factories?" "Sir," Kixara said quietly, "I am also detecting what appears to be smaller ships inside the larger vessel. At least 200 small craft." "Fighters?" "Unknown, sir. They are too small for our database to identify their purpose." Veltar felt the cold feeling in his stomach get worse. A ship with 15,000 people, weapons for 50,000, manufacturing equipment, and 200 small craft. This was not a normal vessel. This was something designed for one purpose: war. "Continue the deep scan," he ordered. "I want to know everything about this ship." As the Valonian scanning beam pushed deeper into the human vessel, neither Veltar nor Captain Park knew that this moment would change both their species forever. The scan was about to reveal things that would make the Valonians question everything they thought they knew about war, peace, and the nature of intelligent life in the galaxy. In the depths of space, two very different ships faced each other across the darkness. One was beautiful and artistic, built by a species that valued harmony and grace. The other was ugly and functional, built by a species that had learned the hard way that sometimes survival was more important than beauty. The scan continued, and with each passing moment, the Valonians were about to discover just how different humans really were. The scanning beam from the Serenity's edge pushed deeper into the human ship's structure. Science Officer Kixara watched her screens with growing concern as more and more unusual readings appeared. What she was seeing did not match anything in the Valonian database of known species and their technology. "Commander," she called to Veltar, "the scan is penetrating the vessel's inner compartments. I am finding some very strange things." Veltar walked over to her station. His tall frame cast a shadow over the glowing displays. "Define strange," Kixara pointed to one of her screens. "This section here appears to be a storage area, but the items stored there are not normal supplies. The computer identifies them as explosive devices." "Weapons?" "More than weapons, sir. These appear to be nuclear devices, very powerful ones." Veltar's large black eyes widened. Nuclear weapons were known to the Valonians, but they were considered primitive and dirty. Only the most backward species still use such crude tools of destruction. "How many nuclear devices?" he asked. Kixara worked at her controls for several minutes, her face growing more pale with each reading. "Sir, I count at least 3,000 individual nuclear warheads of various sizes." 3,000? Veltar stepped back from the screen. "That is enough to destroy multiple planets." "Yes, sir. And Commander, that is just one storage area. The scan shows there are dozens of similar areas throughout the ship." Veltar felt dizzy. What kind of species carried enough nuclear weapons to sterilize entire star systems? And why would they need so many? "Continue the scan," he said quietly. "I need to understand what we are dealing with." The scanning beam moved to another section of the human vessel. This area was different from the weapons storage. It appeared to be living quarters, but they were arranged in a very organized pattern. "Sir," Kixara said, "this section contains living beings. They appear to be resting, but their arrangement is very military in nature." "Military?" "Yes, sir. They are organized in groups of exactly 100 individuals each. Each group has identical equipment and identical sleeping arrangements. This is not a civilian crew." Veltar studied the readings. In Valonian society, military ships had small crews of professionals. The idea of thousands of soldiers on one vessel was unthinkable. "How many of these military groups?" he asked. "I count 150 groups, sir. That means 15,000 soldiers, not counting the ship's crew." 15,000 soldiers? Veltar grabbed the edge of Kixara's station to steady himself. What could possibly require 15,000 soldiers on one ship? Deep in the human vessel, Colonel Minho Jang was sleeping in his quarters when his communication device beeped softly. He opened his eyes and reached for the device without fully waking up. "Jang here," he said quietly. "Colonel, this is Captain Park. We have a situation. Unknown aliens are scanning our ship. I need you and your Marines ready for action in 30 minutes. Jang was fully awake now. "Understood, sir. What kind of aliens?" "Unknown. They have not made contact or shown hostile intent yet, but I want to be prepared. My Marines will be ready, Captain." Jang ended the communication and began putting on his uniform. He had commanded Marines for 20 years, and he knew that being prepared for trouble usually meant the difference between going home alive and going home in a box. He activated the Marine communication system. "All battalion commanders, this is Colonel Jang. We have unknown alien contact. Prepare your units for possible combat operations. Full battle gear, weapons check, and standby positions in 15 minutes." Throughout the Marine sections of the ship, 15,000 soldiers began to wake up and prepare for battle. They moved with the smooth efficiency of people who had done this many times before. On the Valonian ship, the scanning beam had found the Marines as they began to move. Kixara watched her screens with growing horror as the readings showed thousands of individuals putting on what could only be described as battle armor. "Commander," she said, her voice shaking, "the military personnel are becoming active. They appear to be preparing for combat." "Combat? We have made no threatening moves." "Sir, They seem to be responding to our scanning beam. I think they know we are here. Veltar felt panic beginning to build in his chest. The unknown ship had enough nuclear weapons to destroy worlds and 15,000 soldiers who were now getting ready to fight. What had seemed like an easy salvage operation was turning into something much more dangerous. Sir, Kixara continued, the scan is now showing the soldiers' equipment. Each individual appears to be carrying enough weapons and ammunition to fight for weeks without resupply. Weeks? Yes, sir. And their armor appears to be powered and environmentally sealed. These are not simple foot soldiers. These are highly advanced combat specialists. The scanning beam moved to another section of the ship and found something that made Kixara gasp out loud. The area was filled with manufacturing equipment, but not the kind used to make normal ship supplies. Commander, this section appears to be a weapons factory. They can manufacture firearms, ammunition, explosives, and even larger weapons while traveling through space. Veltar stared at the screen showing the human manufacturing area. In Valonian society, weapons were made on planets in special facilities. The idea of a mobile weapons factory was completely foreign to him. Why would anyone need to make weapons while traveling? He asked. Sir, I think this species expects to fight for very long periods without returning to their home worlds. The scanning beam continued its exploration and found the launch bays where the smaller craft were stored. As the beam examined these ships, Kixara realized they were not simple transport vessels. Commander, the small craft are fighters, very advanced fighters. Each one appears to be heavily armed and capable of both space and atmospheric combat. How many fighters? 250, sir, plus what appears to be 50 larger craft that could be bombers or assault ships. Veltar sat down in his command chair. His legs felt weak. The unknown vessel was not just a ship. It was a mobile military base capable of conducting warfare on a massive scale without any support from home. Sir, Kixara said, there is more. The scan has found what appears to be a medical facility. But it is not designed for normal medical care. What do you mean? Sir, this medical facility appears to be designed specifically for treating combat injuries. It can handle thousands of wounded soldiers at the same time. Veltar closed his eyes. A medical facility designed for mass casualties meant this species expected their soldiers to be hurt in large numbers on a regular basis. And, sir, Kixara continued, I am detecting what appears to be a research laboratory. They appear to be working on new weapons and defensive technologies while traveling. They improve their weapons while they fight? Yes, sir. This ship is completely self-sufficient for extended military operations. In another part of the human ship, Dr. So-Young Choi was working in her laboratory when the general alert was announced. She was a military scientist, and her job was to study alien technology and find ways to use it against enemies. She immediately began preparing her equipment to analyze any alien technology they might capture. Dr. Choi had spent her entire career finding new ways to give human soldiers advantages in combat. The possibility of studying actual alien technology excited her. Computer, she said to her laboratory's artificial intelligence, begin preparation for analysis of unknown alien technology. Load all standard testing protocols. Protocols loaded, Dr. Choi. Shall I also prepare the countermeasures database? Yes. If these aliens are hostile, I want to be ready to find their weaknesses. Dr. Choi had no way of knowing that the aliens scanning her ship were peaceful explorers who had never encountered a species like humanity. She assumed, like all humans, that any alien contact would eventually lead to war. Back on the Valonian ship, Kixara was completing her analysis of the scan data. What she had found was so disturbing that she hesitated to report it to Commander Veltar. Sir, she said finally, I have completed the structural analysis of the unknown vessel. Report. Sir, this ship is not designed like any vessel we have ever encountered. Every system, every room, every piece of equipment is designed around one concept: warfare. Explain. The hull is not just thick, sir. It is designed to absorb and deflect energy weapons. The armor can probably withstand direct hits from our most powerful guns. The internal structure is compartmentalized, so that damage to one area will not affect other areas. This ship is designed to keep fighting even after taking massive damage. Veltar felt cold all over. What about the crew areas? The crew quarters are designed to be sealed against chemical and biological attacks. The life support system has multiple backups. Even the dining areas can be converted to emergency medical stations. They expect to be attacked with chemical and biological weapons? Sir, not only do they expect it, they appear to be prepared to use such weapons themselves. The scan detected storage areas containing what can only be described as chemical and biological warfare agents. Veltar stood up quickly and walked to the main viewing screen. The unknown ship hung in space before them, looking dark and threatening. He was beginning to understand that they had not found a primitive species with a big ship. They had found something much more dangerous. The Valonian scanning beam had been probing the human ship for hours now, but it was only when it reached the central computer core that Science Officer Kixara discovered the true horror of what they were dealing with. The beam penetrated the ship's data storage systems and began downloading information at a rate that overwhelmed the Valonian computers. "Commander," Kixara called out, her voice filled with confusion. "The scanning beam has accessed their information systems. The amount of data is incredible." Veltar walked over to her station. "What kind of data?" "Everything, sir. Technical manuals, historical records, cultural information, military doctrine. Sir, their database is larger than our entire planetary archive system." "Begin translation," Veltar ordered. "I want to know what kind of species we are dealing with." The Valonian translation computer began working on the human data. The first files it processed were historical records. As the information appeared on the screens, Kixara began reading with growing shock. "Sir," she said slowly, "according to their records, this species has been fighting wars for over 10,000 years. 10,000 years? Veltar sat down heavily. "That cannot be correct. No species fights for 10,000 years. Sir, the records are very detailed. They have documentation of over 14,000 separate conflicts, ranging from small battles to what they call world wars, involving millions of soldiers." Veltar stared at the screen showing human historical data. The Valonians had been at peace for over 5,000 years. The idea of a species in constant warfare was impossible for him to understand. "Show me more," he said. Kixara brought up more files. "Sir, they appear to have developed warfare into a science. They have detailed studies on tactics, strategy, weapons development, and something they call psychological warfare." Psychological warfare? Fighting that attacks the mind and spirit of the enemy, not just their bodies. The translation computer continued working, and more disturbing information appeared. The humans had developed weapons that the Valonians had never imagined. "Sir," Kixara said, "they have created biological weapons so deadly that they have banned themselves from using them." "They banned their own weapons?" "Yes, sir. According to these records, they developed diseases that could kill entire planets, then decided the weapons were too dangerous even for them to use." Veltar felt sick. A species that could create planet-killing diseases but chose not to use them was somehow more frightening than one that would use such weapons. The computer continued translating, and the information became even more disturbing. The humans had not just fought wars on their planet's surface. They had fought in every possible environment. "Commander," Kixara reported, "they have fought wars on land, on water, underwater, in the air, in space, and even in what they call cyberspace." "Cyberspace? Computer networks, sir. They fight wars inside their information systems." Veltar tried to imagine fighting a war inside a computer network. The concept was so alien to Valonian thinking that he could barely understand it. The translation computer brought up technical manuals next. These showed how humans had developed their weapons and military equipment. What Kixara found there made her gasp. "Sir, they have developed 47 different methods of splitting atoms for weapons." 47? Veltar stood up quickly. "We know of only 3 methods. According to their records, they have created nuclear weapons ranging from small bombs that can destroy a building to massive devices that can crack the crust of a planet." The computer continued working, and more technical information appeared. The humans had developed weapons for every possible situation. Sir, they have weapons designed specifically for fighting in space, weapons for fighting underground, weapons for fighting in poisonous atmospheres, and weapons for fighting in zero gravity. Veltar walked to the viewing screen and stared at the human ship. Every detail he learned made it clear that this species had spent their entire existence preparing for war. What about their culture? He asked. Surely they must have some peaceful aspects. Kixara accessed the cultural files. What she found there was even more disturbing than the military records. Sir, their entertainment appears to be based on conflict. They create fictional stories about wars, competitions, and battles. Even their games are about fighting. All of their entertainment? Not all, sir, but a very large portion. They seem to enjoy watching simulated combat for pleasure. The computer found educational records next. These showed how young humans were taught about their history and culture. Commander, they teach their children about warfare from a very early age. Military history is a required subject in their schools. They teach children about war? Yes, sir. And according to these records, many of their children play games that simulate military combat. Veltar felt a deep chill in his bones. A species that taught their young about warfare and let them play war games was creating generations of natural soldiers. The computer accessed more files, and Kixara found records of human military doctrine. These documents explained how humans approached warfare as a science. Sir, they have detailed manuals on every aspect of military operations: logistics, communications, intelligence gathering, sabotage, and something they call combined arms operations. Combined arms? Using different types of military units together in coordinated attacks, land, sea, air, and space forces all working together. The translation computer found personnel records next. These showed the backgrounds of the crew aboard the human ship. Commander, Kixara said, the personnel records show that every person on this ship has combat experience. Every person? Yes, sir. Even the scientists and engineers have been trained for combat and have fought in actual battles. Veltar realized that the human ship was not just carrying soldiers, it was carrying 15,000 combat veterans, who had all survived real warfare. The computer accessed training manuals that showed how humans prepared their military personnel. The information was shocking. Sir, their military training appears to be designed to prepare soldiers for extended combat in any environment. They train their people to fight while wounded, to fight without supply lines, and to fight even when outnumbered. They train to fight while wounded? Yes, sir. According to these manuals, a human soldier is expected to continue fighting even after being seriously injured. The cultural files revealed more disturbing information about human society. War was not just something humans did, it was part of who they were. Commander, their language contains over 300 words specifically related to warfare and combat. 300 words? Yes, sir. They have different words for different types of battles, different types of weapons, different types of military units, and different types of victory. Veltar tried to imagine a language with 300 words for war. The Valonian language had only 12 words related to combat, and most of those were considered archaic. The computer found records of human technological development. These showed that much of their advanced technology had been developed for military purposes. Sir, their computer technology, their spacecraft engines, their medical equipment, and even their food preservation methods were all originally developed for military use. Their entire technological civilization is based on warfare. It appears so, sir. According to these records, humans often develop new technology specifically to gain advantages in combat, then later adapt that technology for peaceful purposes. The translation computer accessed historical records from something humans called Admiral Kyung-Soo Yoon's Strategic Studies. These documents contained analysis of human military capabilities and strategic thinking. Commander, Kixara said, reading the files, this Admiral Yoon has written extensively about something called total war. Total war? Complete mobilization of an entire civilization for military purposes. Every person, every resource, every piece of technology focused on winning a conflict. Veltar felt faint. The idea of an entire civilization focused on warfare was beyond his understanding. The computer found more recent records that showed human military expansion into space. These documents revealed that the ship they were scanning was not unique. "Sir," Kixara said quietly, "according to these records, this vessel is one of over 300 similar ships." 300 ships like this one? Yes, sir. They appear to have built an entire fleet of mobile military bases. The computer accessed records from Dr. Yunji Bei, a human historian. Her files contained analysis of human military evolution over time. "Commander, according to Dr. Bei's research, humans have been improving their military capabilities continuously for their entire recorded history. They never stop developing new ways to fight." "They never stop?" "No, sir. Even during periods of peace, they continue to study warfare and develop new military technologies. The translation computer found the most recent files in the human database. These showed current human military operations and strategic planning." "Sir," Kixara said, her voice shaking, "the most recent records indicate that this species has already encountered hostile alien forces." "What?" "According to these files, they have been fighting what they call space pirates for several months. But sir, based on the descriptions, I do not think these were pirates." "What do you mean?" Captain Taemin Park was reviewing damage reports when Lieutenant Haijin Kim called out from her station with urgency in her voice. "Captain, the alien scanning beam has changed. They are now accessing our computer systems." Park turned to face her. "Accessing our systems? Are they trying to hack us?" "No, sir. It appears to be passive scanning. They are reading our databases but not trying to control anything." Park thought for a moment. If the aliens were reading their databases, they were about to learn everything about humanity and human military capabilities. That could be very good or very bad, depending on the aliens' intentions. "Can we block the scan?" he asked. "Chief Engineer," Daeun Lee's voice came over the communication system. "Captain, I can raise our defensive screens, but it will take me off minimal power and reveal our true capabilities." Park made a quick decision. "Do it. If they are reading our files anyway, there is no point in hiding what we are." "Understood, Captain. Bringing main power online now." Throughout the indomitable will, systems that had been running on emergency power suddenly came to full life. Lights brightened, computers activated, and weapon systems began their startup sequences. On the Valonian ship, Kixara watched her screens in terror as the human vessel transformed before her eyes. Energy readings that had been barely detectable suddenly spiked to levels that overwhelmed her sensors. "Commander," she called out, "the unknown vessel is powering up. Energy output is increasing by factors of 10 every second." Veltar rushed to her station. "Are they preparing to attack?" "Sir, I cannot tell. Their power output is now greater than our entire fleet's maximum capacity." On the human ship, systems continued coming online. Weapon ports that had appeared to be hull damage suddenly opened to reveal massive gun batteries. Defensive screens activated, surrounding the ship. In a shimmer of energy, fighter launch bays opened their doors and automated defense systems came online. Lieutenant Commander Dong-Hyun Shin was at the weapons station, watching as his systems came to full power. He had been a weapons officer for 12 years, and he had never seen anything as beautiful as a fully armed human warship preparing for battle. "Captain," he reported, "all weapon systems are online. Primary batteries are charged and ready. Secondary systems are standing by. Fighter squadron is ready to launch on your command." Major Jin Woo Kang was in the fighter bay, watching his pilots run through their pre-flight checks. His squadron had flown combat missions against the space pirates for 3 weeks, and they were ready for anything. "Flight leader to bridge," he called over the communication system. "All fighters are fueled, armed, and ready for immediate launch." Petty Officer Hana Yu was at the sensor station, analyzing the alien ship that had been scanning them. What she found surprised her. "Captain," she reported, "the alien vessel appears to be scientific in nature. I am not detecting heavy weapons or military systems." Park studied the sensor readings. The alien ship was large and clearly advanced, but it did not appear to be a warship. "Analysis of the alien vessel?" he asked. "Sir, it appears to be an exploration ship. Beautiful design, Advanced technology, but minimal weapons. It could be a first contact situation. Park had trained for first contact scenarios, but they had always assumed that humanity would be the less advanced species. This situation was reversed. Open a communication channel, he ordered. All frequencies. Hanayu worked at her station. Channel open, sir. Park spoke clearly and slowly. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Taemin Park of the Earthship Indomitable Will. You have been scanning our vessel without permission. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. On the Valonian ship, the human transmission came through their communication systems like a thunderclap. The voice was deep, strong, and carried the unmistakable tone of military authority. Sir, Kixara said, they are using basic galactic standard language. Their pronunciation is crude, but understandable. Veltar listened to the message again. The human captain had not threatened them, but there was something in his voice that made it clear he was ready for trouble. Sir, Kixara continued, the human ship's targeting systems have locked onto us. Locked onto us? Yes, sir. Every weapon on their ship is now aimed directly at us. Sir, I count over 400 individual weapon systems all pointing at our position. Veltar felt his legs go weak. 400 weapons? His ship had 12 defensive guns and considered itself well armed. Time to target if they fire? He asked. Sir, at this range, less than 3 seconds. Veltar realized that the humans could destroy his ship before he could even send a surrender message. The scanning beam had awakened something that was far more dangerous than anything the Valonian Empire had ever encountered. Open a channel, he ordered. I will respond to their message. Channel open, sir. Veltar spoke into the microphone, trying to keep his voice steady. Human vessel, this is Commander Veltar of the Valonian exploration ship Serenity's Edge. We meant no harm. We were conducting a standard survey of your vessel. On the human ship, Captain Park listened to the alien response. The voice was high and musical, and definitely not hostile. Analysis of the alien communication? He asked. Lieutenant Kim worked at her station. Sir, voice stress analysis indicates they are frightened. No signs of deception or hostile intent. Park made a decision. Stand down from full alert but maintain readiness. Hana, continue monitoring their ship for any sign of weapons activation. Yes, sir. Park activated the communication system again. Commander Veltar, your scanning of our vessel was detected as a potential hostile act. We are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. However, we are willing to discuss peaceful contact if that is your intention. On the Valonian ship, Veltar felt a small amount of relief. The humans were not immediately planning to destroy him, but their message made it clear that they could do so at any time. Sir, Kixara said quietly, what should we tell them? Veltar thought carefully. Everything they had learned about humanity suggested that honesty might be the safest approach with these people. Open the channel again, he said. Human vessel, we are peaceful explorers from the Valonian Empire. We have never encountered your species before. We apologize for scanning your ship without permission. We did not realize you were aware of our presence. Park listened to the alien response and felt slightly more relaxed. These aliens seemed genuinely peaceful, if somewhat foolish. Commander Veltar, he replied, we appreciate your honesty. However, you should be aware that scanning a military vessel without permission is considered an act of war by many species. You are fortunate that we are in a peaceful mood today. On the Valonian ship, those words sent a chill through everyone. On the bridge, the human captain had just politely informed them that he could have legally destroyed them for their scanning operation. Sir, Kixara whispered. What did he mean by, we are in a peaceful mood today? Veltar realized that the human captain was telling them that on another day, or under different circumstances, the human response might have been immediate destruction. Human vessel, Veltar responded. We understand and apologize again for our error. We would like to open peaceful diplomatic contact between our species. Park considered the request. First contact was always complicated, and his ship was still on a military mission. but the opportunity to gather intelligence about alien species and their capabilities was too valuable to ignore. Commander Veltar, we are willing to exchange basic information about our species. However, you should be aware that this vessel is on a military mission and cannot engage in extended diplomatic discussions. Veltar felt another chill. The human captain was reminding him that this was a warship on active duty, not a diplomatic vessel. We understand, Veltar replied. We would be grateful for any information you are willing to share. Park made a decision that would change both species forever. Commander Veltar, we will transmit basic information about human civilization and our presence in this region of space. In return, we request similar information about your people and any other species you have encountered. Agreed, Veltar replied quickly. Park turned to his communications officer. Prepare a basic information package. Include our territorial claims, our military capabilities, and our first contact protocols. Make sure they understand that humanity considers this region of space to be under our protection. Yes, sir. The human information package was transmitted to the Valonian ship. As Kixara began reading the data, she realized that humanity's territorial claims covered a much larger area of space than the Valonian Empire had ever attempted to control. Sir, she reported, according to this data, humanity claims sovereignty over 17 star systems and considers this entire region to be their sphere of influence. 17 systems? Veltar was shocked. The Valonian Empire controlled only 8 systems, and those had taken centuries to develop. Sir, there is more. They state that they have military patrols throughout this region and consider any hostile, alien presence to be a threat to human security. Veltar realized that his peaceful exploration mission had accidentally brought him into contact with a species that was actively expanding their territory through military force. The human data package included information about human military doctrine that made Veltar's blood run cold. The Serenity's Edge moved through hyperspace toward the Valonian home system, carrying news that would change the galaxy forever. Commander Veltar sat in his quarters, writing his report for the High Council. Every word had to be chosen carefully, because what he was about to tell them would sound impossible. Science Officer Kixara knocked on his door and entered when he called. She carried a datapad filled with the analysis of everything they had learned about humanity. Commander, she said, sitting down across from his desk, I have completed my full analysis of the human data. And, sir, it is worse than we thought. Veltar put down his writing stylus. How can it be worse? Kixara activated her datapad. The humans were not lying when they said this region was under their protection. According to the data they shared, they have been conducting military operations here for 6 months. Military operations? Yes, sir. They have been fighting what they called space pirates, but based on the ship descriptions and technology, they were fighting Zephyrian raiders. Veltar felt cold. The Zephyrians were one of the most aggressive military species in the galaxy. The fact that humans were fighting them and winning was terrifying. How many battles, he asked. Over 200 separate engagements, sir. The humans have destroyed 47 Zephyrian ships and captured 12 more for study. They captured ships for study? Yes, sir. According to their records, they take apart enemy technology to understand it and find ways to improve their own weapons. Veltar realized that humanity was not just fighting wars. They were learning from every battle and becoming more dangerous with each victory. What else did you find? Kixara consulted her datapad. Sir, the ship we encountered was not alone. It is part of a reconnaissance force of 12 identical vessels. 12 ships like that one? Yes, sir, and those 12 ships are just the advanced scouts for something much larger. Veltar stood up and walked to his window, looking out at the stars rushing past. How much larger? Sir, the human data indicates they have over 300 ships, of that size or larger. They call it their deep space fleet. Veltar gripped the window frame. 300 warships like the one they had encountered could conquer half the galaxy. Sir, Kixara continued, there is something else. The humans mentioned that this region is under their protection. According to their territorial claims, They consider everything within 50 light-years of their current position to be human space. 50 light-years? Yes, sir. That includes 7 Valonian colonies and the trade routes to the Centauri systems. Veltar realized that humanity had already claimed territory that the Valonian Empire considered their own. The potential for conflict was enormous. 2 days later, the Serenity's Edge arrived at the Valonian homeworld. Veltar was immediately summoned to appear before the High Council, the governing body of the Valonian Empire. The High Council chamber was a beautiful room with crystal walls that sparkled in the light of the home star. 12 Valonian leaders sat in chairs arranged in a circle, with Veltar standing in the center. High Counselor Mirane spoke first. Commander Veltar, your preliminary report mentions contact with an unknown species. Please provide details. Veltar took a deep breath. Honored counselors, we have encountered a species that calls itself humanity. They appear to be expanding into our region of space with military force. Military force? Counselor Texara seemed surprised. Are they hostile? Not exactly hostile, Counselor, but they are definitely dangerous. This species has evolved specifically for warfare. The council members looked at each other with confusion. Counselor Yelena spoke next. Explain what you mean by evolved for warfare. Veltar activated a holographic display that showed images of the human ship. Honored counselors, this species has been fighting wars continuously for over 10,000 years. They have turned military conflict into a science. The council members stared at the image of the human warship. Its dark, angular design was completely unlike anything they had ever seen. This vessel, Veltar continued, carries 15,000 soldiers and enough weapons to destroy multiple planets. It can manufacture new weapons while traveling and operate independently for years without resupply. High Counselor Mirane leaned forward. Surely this is an unusual example. No species builds all their ships for war. Honored Counselor, according to their own data, they have over 300 ships of this size or larger. They call it their normal military fleet. The council chamber fell silent. The Valonian Empire's entire military consisted of 48 ships, and most of those were for exploration and patrol duties. Counselor Zix Oro spoke up. What are their intentions toward the Valonian Empire? They stated that they consider this region of space to be under their protection. This includes 7 of our colonies. They claim our colonies? Not exactly, Counselor. They claim the right to protect this region from hostile forces, but their definition of hostile appears to include anyone who might threaten their expansion. Kixara was called to present her scientific analysis. She activated her own holographic display showing human technology and capabilities. Honored counselors, she began, this species has developed weapons and technology far beyond anything we have encountered. They have 47 different types of nuclear weapons, chemical and biological warfare agents, and military doctrine that assumes continuous combat. Counselor Texara asked, what do you mean by continuous combat? They plan for wars that last for years or even decades. Every piece of equipment, every strategy, every aspect of their military is designed for extended warfare without support from their home worlds. High Counselor Mirane asked the question that everyone was thinking. Could we defend ourselves if they decide to attack us? Kixara hesitated before answering. Honored Counselor, based on what we observed, a single human warship could probably defeat our entire home fleet. The council chamber erupted in concerned whispers. The idea that one enemy ship could defeat their entire military was beyond their worst fears. However, Kixara continued, they did not appear to be immediately hostile. They seemed willing to engage in peaceful contact as long as we did not threaten them. Counselor Yelena asked, what do you recommend? Veltar stepped forward. Honored counselors, I recommend immediate diplomatic contact with the human government. We need to establish peaceful relations before they decide we are a threat. And if diplomacy fails? Asked Counselor Zixoro. Veltar looked around the chamber at the beautiful crystal walls and peaceful artwork. Then we should prepare to evacuate our border colonies and withdraw to the inner systems. High Counselor Mirani stood up. Commander Veltar, you are telling us that we should abandon our territory to this human species? Honored Counselor, I am telling you that we cannot fight them and win. Our only options are peaceful coexistence or retreat. The Council spent 3 hours debating Veltar's report. Finally, High Counselor Miran announced their decision. We will send a diplomatic mission to make contact with the human government. Commander Veltar, you will lead this mission since you have already had contact with them. Yes, Honored Counselor. However, Mirani continued, we will also begin preparing our border colonies for possible evacuation. If diplomacy fails, we will not sacrifice Valonian lives in a hopeless war. As the council session ended, Veltar walked outside into the beautiful gardens of the government complex. The peaceful setting seemed strange after everything he had learned about humanity. Kixara joined him in the garden. Sir, do you think diplomacy will work? Veltar looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human warships were patrolling space that had been peaceful for thousands of years. I hope so, he said. Because the alternative is unthinkable. Meanwhile, 50 light-years away, Captain Park was completing his mission report aboard the Indomitable Will. His encounter with the Valonians had been noted and filed, but it was just one small event in a much larger operation. Captain, Lieutenant, Kim reported, we have completed repairs and are ready to continue patrol. Very good. Set course for Grid Section 7. Intelligence reports possible hostile activity in that area. As the human warship moved deeper into what the Valonians considered their territory, Captain Park had no idea that his brief encounter had set in motion events that would reshape the political balance of the galaxy. The Indomitable Will was joined by 3 other human warships as it continued its patrol. Unknown to both humans and Valonians, they were being watched by scouts from a dozen other alien species. The galaxy had been relatively peaceful for centuries, with conflicts limited to small border disputes and commercial disagreements. The arrival of humanity was about to change everything. In the communications center of the human ship, a message was being prepared for transmission to Earth Command. The message was simple. First contact with alien species achieved. Peaceful. Contact established. Recommend continued expansion of human influence in this sector. The message would reach Earth in 3 days. The response would authorize the deployment of 50 additional warships to the region. Humanity had found the galaxy, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the Indomitable Will disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward its next patrol area, its wake was filled with the quantum signatures of a species that had spent 10,000 years learning how to fight.